It's a travel day for the Mariners as they head home up 2-0 in the ALCS. So let's take advantage of the day off and open up the mailbag. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. This is Tiding Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone, and on there we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/control the zone. Link in the description. It's a rare mailbag Tuesday on the show. Let's answer some of your Mariners questions. Ryan wants to know, if this Mariners team were to advance to the World Series, should this team be considered the greatest Mariners team of all time?
Technically, yeah. I guess the way I would probably look at it is like, okay, if you played a 7-game series, right? These guys versus the 2000s. I mean, it's got to be one of the other playoff teams, right? Would be their competition. Yeah. So 2001 team, would they win 7 games or would they win a best of 7 against the 2001 team? I don't know. Cameron kind of having a career year, Boone having a career year for, reasons. Edgar was incredible. Ichiro, obviously, but you definitely had the pitching advantage on that team, at least, in the rotation. So I think, yeah, probably just by default, they would almost have to be. But I think, if we really wanted to break this down, and it's always tough to do this because it's different eras and whatnot. But I think the 2001 team could give them some serious run. And again, that 95 team, as much as we make fun of it, we're talking prime Griffey, prime Edgar, we're talking prime Buhner, prime Tino Martinez, prime Randy Johnson, a young Alex Rodriguez who's just getting ready to break out. Like, that was a really good team too, but your pitching is so much deeper than that team that So yeah, I think probably it would have to be, but I think it would be we should get like Gary Hill on the show and ask him that, because he has a much better recollection of the 90s and early 2000 teams than Ty and I do. But I think, almost by, it has to be like they're the first team to go to the World Series. They're the best team in franchise history.
Yeah. Maybe there's a difference there to make, or a distinction there to make, between best team and most accomplished team.
Sure.
But, because there is like some randomness involved with the playoffs, and you also have to account for like the state of the league at the time. And we've talked so much this year about how weak the American League is, and how weak Major League Baseball is.
The 2001 team was facing like the dynastic Yankees at the time.
Weak might be the wrong word to use, actually. It's just there's so much parity. In the league this year compared to some other years, and there isn't really like an elite team really this year. We didn't have a 100-game winner this year in the regular season, so maybe for all of those reasons you could also make an argument for a different team that didn't get as far as maybe this team will, but I think in the end, you make the World Series, you win the World Series, I think you have to be considered the best team in franchise history.
Yeah, I just, that early 2000s team was going up against the dynastic Yankees, who had won like 3 in a row and 4 or 5 and all that. And the mid-90s teams where the Orioles were really good at the time, and so were the Guardians, now they're the Guardians, were really good at the time. But I'd like to ask Gary this question, honestly. Have him on this winter. We can try and remember this, but I think almost by default it kind of has to be, but I think that 2001 team has a real argument.
Next question here from PSG Connoisseur. If Brian Wu comes back mostly healthy this week, and if the Mariners do reach the World Series, do you roll with a 5-man rotation, or does someone get moved to the bullpen? Miller has been great thus far, and he's healthy. All hypothetical, of course.
Yeah, that's another good question. I think ultimately you're just going to kind of have a roving extra arm every day down in your bullpen where it's like, hey, Bryce could start game 4 in the World Series, but if we need him, we can, have him come out of the bullpen and then game 5 would just be started by Castillo or Gilbert or whatever, right? Whoever was the freshest. Because there still are the off days built in. It's a 2-3-2 format again. So, yeah, whoever starts game 1 or 2 in theory should be able to pitch game 5. So you could just use whoever your number 5 starter is out of the bullpen. Maybe it's Wu, whatever. So I think they're just kind of be like a rolling. Like we wouldn't set the rotation like in stone at game 1, and it just kind of you would play it by ear and all that. So I don't think there's actually a real answer to this. I wouldn't be shocked if 5 guys got a start in a World Series. But I think you just kind of have to, play it by ear and just kind of, hey, look, if maybe the plan was to start George Kirby in game 4 or whatever, but we have a chance to take a 2-1 lead and we're up by 2 in the 6th, and we just, screw it. We'll go with Kirby and then we'll ask, Wu to start tomorrow instead of game 6 or whatever, because we had the off day. So he's fully healthy. So yeah, it's a really interesting question because there's no really right answer to it. I think ultimately you want to give your 4 best guys as many shots, really your 3 best guys. You want to give them as many starts in the 7-game series as you can. So if you go to a 5-man rotation, somebody's not getting a second start unless obviously you win in less than 7. But so there's some real drawbacks there. And is Bryant Wu, like rumor has it, he's only going to throw about 50 pitches.
So yeah, and this kind of leads into the next question that we have. We'll get into that in a second, but I think it ultimately depends on how much workload Wu can take on. Because if you only feel comfortable giving him a couple of innings, maybe you just put him in the bullpen the rest of the way.
Yeah.
But I think also some of it is matchup dependent. Like, for example, do you want Luis Castillo to pitch against like Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman?
I mean, probably not in LA, but in Seattle.
Yeah.
Do I want him to? I mean, to be fair, I really don't want him to face, Christian Yelich in Milwaukee. So it's really not just a Dodger thing there, but it's just one of those things. You kind of have to play it by ear and just kind of let the series happen. And, you go in with a plan, but you have to be willing to change that plan. And ultimately, if Wu can't go more than 50, 65 pitches, I think you might be better off just sticking him in the bullpen. For the most part, it doesn't mean you can't like, hey, we'll take the 65 and we'll start him here in game 3 or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I think ultimately, if there is going to be a starter, if they are going to roll with a 4-man rotation, just because of health, Wu is the easy guy here. And plus, Bryce has been shoving his last couple starts, and I don't think you want to move him into the bullpen. And Castillo, don't really think that stuff plays up all that well in the bullpen. Yeah. I know he was really good in Detroit, blah, 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 but you're not going to take the ball away from Kirby. Playoff George is a thing. So you're not like taking that ball away from him. And then it's Logan Gilbert. Like, you're going to move your staff ace to the bullpen? Maybe, but like probably not, especially when your actual staff ace is not 100% healthy. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I think you just kind of play it by ear. And could 5 guys get a start in the World Series? Sure. Is it going to be set in stone? No. And I don't think we'll know who the 4 guys are, until the series progresses.
We'll talk more about Brian Wu as a bullpen piece in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And if you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. For instant reactions following every Mariners playoff game, be sure to tune in to the Mariners postcast with Anderson Hurst and Christopher Crawford, available on both the Locked On Mariners YouTube and podcast feeds. Let's get back into your questions here on Mailbag Tuesday. Swaggerty69 wants to know, do you believe that Brian Wu has any shot of pitching in either games 3 or 4 from the bullpen? I'd rather have the kill shot of throwing your best guy out there to end it than saving it for game 5. I guess my question is, like, how comfortable do you feel going to Wu, specifically in a big spot after he hasn't thrown in a real game in 3 weeks or whatever it's been since the Houston series?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think they would do that again. If you win tomorrow and you go into game 4 and you're up by, it's like 5-2 or something like that in the 7th, you might just be like, look, screw it. Like we're going to take this shot, right? We're going to go for the kill shot, but I don't think so. I think they really want Wu to be focused on getting ready and preparing for a very specific time and a very specific, start for a reason. And they don't want to disrupt that and all that, because the thing you still have to remember, Wu is still a young arm. And he's an arm that's dealt with injuries in his career.
Yeah, and he's blown past his career high in innings this year.
Right. So I don't think you want to surprise him with that. Again, maybe you can, because you do have the off day. So in theory, Bryce could just start game 5 on normal rest, and you feel pretty good about that if you do blow Wu in game 3 or 4. But I don't think they're going to do. I think they're going to be very specific and very deliberate about this, because they're still trying to help, protect Brian Wu and his health and all that, and thinking about his long-term future. So I don't think they would do that. I wouldn't say they won't do it, because, in the game 3 or game 4, like, anything's on the table. Everything has to be on the table, even when you're up 2-0. Like, they're just things that you have to consider doing. So they might consider it, but I really doubt we're going to see Brian Wu before game 5, because I think they really want him to focus on that day, do everything you can to be ready for that day. And we don't want to disrupt anything, because you haven't thrown in 3 weeks, essentially, almost a month now. So yeah, I doubt it. I won't rule it out because it's the playoffs, but I highly doubt it.
Next question here from Subway Artistico. Should Randy still be leading off? Look, he's been mediocre at best this postseason, but I'm not messing with a single thing with the lineup. I'm just letting it rock.
Yeah. See this question a lot.
Plus, what's the alternative here?
Right.
JP as the leadoff guy?
No. Well, you go through the list of alternatives, right? It's Julio. Julio doesn't like hitting leadoff. He's been very vocal about this.
Yeah.
I understand that, it's the playoffs. Sometimes you have to do things. You're not blah, blah, blah. But Julio doesn't like hitting leadoff. So, and he's kind of in a groove right now. The playoffs have been hit or miss for him, but for the most part, he's been in a groove for the last 3 months, and you don't really want to mess with that. Cal hitting 2 is where you want him. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's not going to be Cal. And then you go, do you want Polanco hitting leadoff? You take him out of all those prime opportunities to drive in runs, which is what he's doing right now. Naylor, maybe, but keep in mind, and this is kind of the point I keep coming back to, if you put Naylor in the leadoff spot, right? So you go Naylor, Cal, Julio, Polo. Nice. Do you want this version of Randy Arozarena and this version of Eugenio Suarez hitting back-to-back?
Yeah. So that's another thing. Also, the bottom of the lineup isn't producing enough right now to set up opportunities, scoring opportunities for Jorge Polanco or Josh Naylor in that leadoff spot. Yeah, the lineup is working enough right now, the way that it is. I don't want to mess with anything.
Yeah. Victor Robles wasn't playing terrible baseball right now. maybe you could put Victor up there.
Also, you're not really getting anything out of the DH spot.
Yeah, Canzone's giving you nothing, so you're not putting him up there. Like, there's just not a lot of good options. And Randy, for as much as he struggled, he's still, not chasing a tremendous amount. He's still taking walks. He's still stealing bases, and being a very just a pest in general. So I think, you want more from Randy, certainly. I'm not telling you Randy's had a good postseason. He hasn't. But there's just not, like, the only other viable option really is either JP, but again, then you probably have Julio, or you probably have Randy and Gino hitting back to back, which is not what you want. Not with the way they're swinging the bats right now. And then Julio, and Julio's does not like hitting leadoff. He's been great since they put him in, the 3 spot. And he's reached base, I think, 6 times in the first 2 games of the series. So, like, there's really not a reason to mess with him there. So I think, it's not ideal, obviously, but I think it's the best of your options. So Randy should probably stay in the leadoff spot. Again, like, if it wasn't for, if like Gino was hitting right now, fine, flip Naylor for Randy, but Gino's not. He doesn't look very good at the plate either. Although he did have a couple, hard hit balls yesterday. But,
I mean, he's looked fine on the road. It's just at T-Mobile Park, he's been a disaster.
Yes. So no, like, if Canzone was hitting, sure, but like basically right now in the playoffs, Julio, kind of, Cal is hitting, Naylor is hitting, and Polo are hitting. And, Julio's doing enough in between those guys to keep things going, but Gino's not really hitting. Canzone's not hitting. Robles isn't hitting at all. Randy, just finding a way to get on base once or twice a game, and you live with that for now. So really, I mean, maybe JP is really the only other viable option, because JP's looked pretty good at the plate.
Yeah. And look, Randy is a streaky hitter. Yeah. And it's possible the upswing is right around the corner here. So for that reason, because he can pop at any time, I'm just keeping things the way they are. I'm keeping him at the top of the lineup. At the very least, I feel good about him giving me 1 to 2 quality plate appearances a game. Next question here from Tom. Dan gets lots of criticism for decision making. So what, in your opinion, has he done well to navigate this team to where they are? It's the stuff that we don't see.
Again, we talk to people around the org. You talk to people who, like, are in the know, and I haven't heard a single one of them say that Dan Wilson is like a really good field manager. But you can't talk about Dan Wilson for more than like 30 seconds without being like, but the players love him, and they buy in totally to what he says and all that. And so, again, there are trade-offs here. And I do think Dan, his management in general has gotten a little better as the year has progressed, which is the same thing we saw from Scott Service. Scott Service's first 2-3 years, I couldn't stand the guy. He sucked. And he just slowly started getting better and better. And then the culture stuff started to come into focus. And Dan's kind of picked up the ball from Scott and ran with it with his own style, certainly. But the guys love Dan Wilson, and they'll go to battle for him, and they believe in what he's selling, and they believe in what he's telling them. And that's a huge part of this thing. So again, ultimately what I want from my managers is to just not get in the way, right? Let your players play, let your players win the games, do all that stuff. And for the most part, this postseason, at least, he's done that. And I can appreciate that. Are there some things that I don't like? I mean, letting Kirby face Carpenter in game 1, didn't love that, but not egregious, I would say.
Well, and then we saw the same situation play out,
right?
And bit him in a different way.
We saw all iterations of that exact same scenario play out, and we got one of everything. So that's kind of funny. Baseball has a sense of humor.
Yeah, the only thing we didn't get was Kirby getting Carpenter out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's never going to happen. So yeah, there's been some minor things for the most part. I mean, well, they're all kind of major in the playoffs, but overall, I think he's managed pretty well, the postseason games. And so, and that is just kind of continuing a trend of him just kind of slowly getting a little bit better at it. And also, he did play for the long run early in the year. Like, he did give guys days off, not Julio, Randy, or Cal, but, other guys would get some days off.
Yeah.
And like, he hasn't been a great manager by any stretch, but for the most part, in September and in the playoffs here, he's just kind of let the guys do their thing, and he's just kind of stepped back and be like, go out there, play. and it's worked pretty well.
The other thing I would say is like, I feel that at times in this postseason, he's outmanaged the other guy across the field. Like I thought he outmanaged AJ Hinch in Game 5. I think in these first 2 games he's outmanaged John Schneider, which I think is more of a Schneider thing than a Dan thing, because Dan hasn't been faced with too many difficult decisions in this series. Though and who knows what the plan was heading into this game. Maybe Logan was just capped out at 50 pitches and he was at 46 after the 3rd inning. But I think going to Bizzardo there in the 4th inning and not trying to milk anything extra out of Logan just on the surface from the outside looking in, I think that's also a good call there. But again, that could just be what the plan was anyway in terms of the pitch count. So who knows if that's actually a Dan thing, but still, like I feel like at times, at the very least, in this postseason, in the games that the Mariners have played in, Dan's been the better manager. All right, we got a few more questions of yours to answer in just a moment, but first a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It's Mailbag Tuesday. Let's get back into your questions. Max wants to know who would have home field advantage if the Mariners make it to the World Series. Either the Brewers or the Dodgers. It's based off of regular season record, and both of those clubs had a better record than you. JR wants to know, do you see Dan evolving his bullpen usage as the series goes on? Specifically, I'm thinking about Spire versus Tigers lefties and how eventually, after seeing him over and over, they finally figured him out. How does Dan avoid a similar fate with his other leverage arms this series?
His offense scores 10 runs. That's a pretty easy way to do it.
It's a good start.
You kind of can't. That's just kind of one of those things. Unfortunately, because the Mariners only have 4 bullpen arms you really trust, like that's just kind of the nature of it. It's not really something you can avoid unless you have like a 7-man bullpen, like maybe the 2021 team did. But the Mariners haven't had that deep of a bullpen in quite a while, and certainly they don't have it this year. And it's like, would you rather have Bizzardo go out there for this 3rd day in a row, or do you want to trust Luke Jackson? Like, those are your options. And I think you'd still rather have Bizzardo go out there, even knowing that these guys have seen him a ton. So there's really not a ton you can do short of, the Mariners winning a couple of blowout games so that Dan Wilson can use Carlos Vargas and can use Emerson Hancock. Hopefully not again. Could use Luke Jackson or Caleb Ferguson. So there's just not really a ton you can do, because ultimately you would still rather have Gabe Spire pitching in those innings than Luke Jackson, or than Caleb Ferguson even. So you're kind of stuck if you're Dan Wilson in that. You just, it is what it is. You hope the series doesn't go 7. So these guys only get 2-3 looks at these guys. But
and that's the thing, right? Is like yesterday, you didn't have to use Spire, Mooney, or Brash. If you sweep them, like there's only 2 more chances for the Blue Jays to see these guys potentially. So you might not have to worry about that, about them getting just so many reps against these guys, like how the Tigers did.
And the nice thing here is that the Mariners, because of just game and days off and all that, like Bizzardo, Spire, Brash, and Munoz are all going to end up getting 3 days off of the last 4 days. Which is great, because Munoz pitched in 4 games, I think, in the ALDS. Bizzardo pitched in all 5. Spire pitched in 4. Brash pitched in 4, I think. And so, it is nice that you have the off days in there, but you still would love to give some of these guys back-to-back days off. And, Bizzardo was able to get back-to-back days off, and he's got another one today. And because of the off day today, Spire, Munoz, and Brash are going to get back-to-back days off. And so doing that is huge as well, because you could see Tarek Skubal 100 times. He's still really hard to hit. and that's kind of how it goes with Brash and Munoz as well. So long as they're healthy and they're, they feel good and they're well rested. And it's tough to do that in the playoffs. And sometimes you don't get that option. But I don't think there's really much Dan can change again, unless the Mariners are just winning by 6-7 runs every single time out. Like, you're still going to go to these 4 guys over and over again because you have to.
All right. Last question of the day comes from Peter. Who do you want throwing out the ceremonial first pitches this week?
So I assume Ichiro will throw out one of them. I'm honestly a little surprised he didn't throw out game 1 or game 2, the first pitch there. But I assume Ichiro will do one of them. Maryland Niehaus probably has to be, on in consideration here as well. Game 3 probably seems like an appropriate time for that. And then dark horse here. You ready for this one, Ty?
Okay.
Humpy.
Oh, all right. I like it. Humpy throwing out the first pitch.
Just saying, like, who do you got? Who's on your list?
Well, there's the obvious names, like you could do Griffey because he didn't technically throw out a first pitch in the ALDS. You could do Felix again, but yeah. I'm like a little scared that if Felix does it, they're gonna lose 1-0 in that game. So,
it seems to be the thing. Felix weekend, you lose 1-0 in 10. Felix throws out the first pitch at the first home playoff game, you lose 1-0 in 18.
Yeah. So
Nelson Cruz,
Nelly would be awesome. Nelly would be great. I think Mitch Haniger would be great for firing up the boys, especially because still there are quite a few of his former teammates on this particular club.
Yeah.
Kyle Seager for obvious reasons.
Sure. How about Rick Riz?
Would love Rick. Rick. Yeah.
Pete Carroll would be a phenomenal choice.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Like, Pete can't get on a plane on a Wednesday and come up here and throw out a first pitch and then go right back. Like, how great would it be if the Raiders were on their bye week this week? That'd be incredible.
I'd be here in my house by myself, and I'd be losing my freaking mind if I saw Pete Carroll come out.
You know what? I'm pretty sure next week the Raiders have a bye, which means if the Mariners make the World Series, there is no reason that Pete Carroll could not get on a plane and throw out the first pitch of either game 1 or 2 of the World Series.
I will run through 100 brick walls if that happens.
So I'm pretty sure they have a week 8 bye. We're entering week 7 right now.
Yeah.
So, and the World Series game 1 would be what, on Monday or Tuesday? Like, again, you have to get there first. We're certainly not counting our chickens, but like, just something to keep in mind. We're talking about first pitches, although those are more World Series first pitches.
Yeah,
maybe
they have a week 8 bye. Yeah.
So now there's even more incentive to go to the World Series. Marshawn, if we're gonna go off the Mariners path, Marshawn.
Yeah, Marshawn.
Gary Payton. Payton was an awesome hype man in game 1, by the way.
I know next year is more so like going to be his year, but why not Randy Johnson?
Yeah. I mean, again, these guys have lives and they might not, be available, but yeah. So I think my top 3 for the ALCS, just to, put a bow on this, my top 3 would probably be Rick Riz, Mitch Haniger, I think just a little bit more than Seager and Marco. And then I think Maryland Niehaus.
Yeah.
I think that would be my top 3.
I'd love to see Nelson Cruz.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I'd love to see Nelson Cruz. Pete Carroll's number 1. Now that you've like planted that seed,
you got to win a couple more games before that's even remotely a possibility.
Whoever makes these decisions, if you're
listening right now, listen,
or if someone who like works under that person and brings them ideas is listening right now, like,
we just gave you the opportunity to make like $1 million extra by having Pete Carroll throw out that first pitch.
I will lose my mind if Pete is there. I'm not joking. I will lose my mind. Mariners by 20. if Pete is out there.
Meanwhile, the Mariners are like, who is this guy? Ty's openly weeping in his home.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like, who?
All right. That is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG and Colby at MLB Colby. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.